Morning, everybody. Just wait a couple of seconds before so that everyone can join, and then I'll get started. But thanks for joining this morning. So that's all good. So yeah, so morning, everybody. Thanks for joining our demo this morning to go through the key features of our MPS universe within FE Analytics that we launched a couple of months ago. So call this morning is to demonstrate the power of the MPS universe within analytics. I'm Will Taplin. I'm one of the BDMs on the advisor side here at FE Fund Info. So I've been in the company for a few years, so I've got quite a good understanding in the way that advisors are using the features within our Nexus ecosystem. And as I said, today's call's been scheduled to go through the MPS universe. Yeah, why we launched it, how it works, and how you can then benefit from the data within the system. So in terms of the agenda, first thing to go through is finding your way through analytics to find the MPS universe, find the models that you need to have a look at. MPS research, so analysing specific MPS portfolios, generating their fact sheets, MPS sectors and filtering, so using our new sectors to compare a range of MPS solutions based on their growth assets or their risk, as well as an advanced filtering tool to filter MPS solutions by their specific criteria. The MPS directory then, so enabling your account with MPS data following your research on the universe, and then going through the subtle differences between the two elements of the system. And then finally, any questions that are put through on the chat. So I think in the top right-hand corner of the GoToWebinar link, if you've got any questions, ping them through and we'll try and cover them at the end. So just a quick introduction to who we are at FE Fund Info. Ultimately, FE Fund Info is a data house, so we aggregate, collect, validate loads and loads of investment data. Therefore, we have clients in both the institutional and the advisor space. So we serve over 1,000 fund managers, 30 plus platforms, plus over 60 life and pension providers, as well as 4,200 financial advice and power planning firms. So we sit in the heart of the space to bridge the gap between the wider asset management industry and the advice market. So collecting the data and serving the advice industry through products like Analytics, TrustNet, FinXL, etc. So our wider advisor tech stack is now referred to as Nexus. So all of the solutions within that, Analytics, Cash Calc, Advisor Asset, etc., fall under the Nexus umbrella. But as I said, it's designed to bridge the gap between asset managers and financial advice. So there's a bit of background into today's call really. We've seen a massive increase in advisors using MPS solutions over the last few years. From my perspective, we speak to tens of advisors every week, and so the vast majority are using MPS solutions as part of their CIP in some aspect. And the MPS directory historically has been one of the most popular features within analytics. So it allows an advisor to request access to the model providers that they're using or looking to use in order to analyze these to build into their CIP. The directory has been part of analytics for around 10 years, contains 90 providers, and you can access over 1,500 model portfolios. Advisors will typically then use this MPS data to run their full due diligence, to compare existing solutions or look for new solutions as part of their CIP, linking it in with risk profiling, reporting, etc. But the new MPS universe actually allows users of analytics unrestricted access to the data of all of these 1,500 or so model portfolios. So you can make informed decisions about which of the providers you want to work with, and then you can use the wider directory, so the directory, to reach out to that manager to have those models and solutions fully plumbed into your account for wider analysis, running reports, doing comparisons, etc. So since the universe went live kind of late September, just gone, last year, a couple of months ago, we've seen a 41% increase in the number of permissions requested within the directory. So going from an average of around 196 models requested per month to 277 models per month over the last 4 months since the tool has been enabled within every user's analytics account as well. So if you're a user of analytics at the moment, you'll be able to find the MPS universe within your account plumbed into the system. But so that basically, those figures there outline exactly what the universe was designed to do then, to allow advisors whole of market MPS research or access before then requesting access for more detail via the directory. So in terms of benefits to the advisors, the idea behind this is that it's going to optimize your advice process with a dedicated MPS due diligence tool within your analytics function. Save time and reduce risk by integrating research and reporting in one place, and then to access daily validated data for the most accurate insights. So to jump into the system then, I'm just going to share my analytics screen. So for anybody who's on the call who's not seen analytics before, even just run through a little bit of the basics in terms of navigation. This is the home screen for analytics, as well as all of the MPS data and research I mentioned there. There's over 300,000 funds you can access the data for, massive range of universes, as well as the new MPS universe. And all of the data really on analytics is housed on this one screen. So when you log into analytics initially, obviously you can kind of split the screen down the middle or slightly off center to the right there. And you've got these tabs over here on the left-hand side: instruments, sectors, indices, filters, and portfolios. And these are your inputs. That's basically where you find what you're going to be doing your research on. The outputs over here on the right: charts, tables, and reports. There's a variety of options within those, which I'll come on to a little bit later on. So the MPS universe in analytics is listed like any other universe within the system. So if I was looking for unit trusts and OEICs, or specific pension funds, ETFs, investment trusts, etc., I'd be able to search for those different instrument types by selecting the universe on my drop-down list within both instruments and sectors. So you'll find on your side here they're all ordered in alphabetical order. So if I scroll down to UK MPS, this is where I'll then be able to find access to my MPS universe. So again, in the same way as you can whenever you're searching for an individual fund, I can go and search in the search bar here. If I'm looking for the specific name of a provider or the name of a model itself, search there, hit enter, and it's going to pull through the results for me. And again, exactly the same way, I can use the drop down function in here to select any manager and any model then that I like from the drop down options there. So you can see these are a range of them. Going to go through these again in a second for you, but say for example I was using or I wanted to have a look at the ATM global models, click on the name of the provider. Under that list then is going to pull through a list of all of the models that they run. Again, I can find the relevant one I want to have a look at, press the add option, and it's going to pull it through here into my active list. And the active list is basically the list of instruments you're then kind of looking at really at any one time. So every individual model on the system has its own fact sheet page. So again, in exactly the same way, if you're looking at a fact sheet for a fund, I can hit on the fact sheet for an MPS solution, and it will generate a really detailed little fact sheet page for me. Before, as I said, having to request access to anything like that as well. So on the quick stat page, what this lists for you is the sector these models are in. So come on to those again in a second, but we've been able to build our own effectively risk asset rated sectors based on all the MPS data on here. It will show me the benchmarks these models are in, also show me the fund, which is referred to as size here, but essentially that's the AUM of those models. As at the most recent time, we've had a figure for those. Crown ratings, again, touch upon in a second. FE risk scores, if you're existing analytics user, or if you use TrustNet before, you're probably familiar with the FE risk scores, but they basically show the relative risk of a fund or a portfolio or an MPS solution in relation to the FTSE 100, which is always fixed at a score of 100. We'll also pull through the launch date information. We've got the AMC in there, so that will be the MPS charge itself. We've got some of the manager information in here. Clicking through these tabs, you can also generate performance info. So in here, this is going to tell me how this model portfolio is done against its own sector. So in this instance here, I could outline that my solution, or the solution I'm looking at here, has outperformed its sector by X amount over the time period. We've also got cumulative performance, discrete annual performance over those time periods. Again, I think these sections here are quite useful. I can see the fund or model quartile then as well, so I can evidence that over the majority of the periods I'm looking at here, this model portfolio that I'm looking at has been in the top quartile compared to its sector. And you've also got the FE risk score chart as well, which basically tracks the rolling volatility, so you can compare how it stacks in volatility terms to its sector group. Again, we don't have the dividend information or income history for these models, but you can also then view the breakdown on the breakdown tab. So if I select fund breakdown, and the holdings, the full holdings information is embargoed, but again, we'll touch upon that in a moment with within the MPS directory. But you can also get the sector, region, asset weight downs as well. And if you've got any products or models that are invested in fixed interest, the credit ratings will also pull through. So that's a bit of information on those on the kind of the fund summary element of the of each of the MPS fact sheets. You can also generate our own. So when you click on the summary fact sheet PDF document up here, again, if you're an existing analytics user, you probably would have seen this for an individual fund. But you can also generate your own white labeled kind of one page reports that pull through that that same information from the previous screen. So you've got general information. Here's the investment objectives. Here we've got a chart comparing the performance versus its sector and its benchmark over a 5-year period, as well as the asset breakdown. So might be one thing to print off to say, well, I'm suggesting that we might then have a look at this model portfolio in a little bit more detail. And as I said, I can then request that via the directory. What we're starting to see more and more providers do as well, so Invesco, for example, is provide us with their own white labeled fact sheets and commentary. So you'll see, for, as I said, we're trying to collate more and more of this data. So you'll see for more and more of the models over time now that that have their models uploaded into the directory, that under the provider documents tab here, by selecting that same fact sheet page again, I can also generate a couple of the provider's own white label documents. So if I want to access the provider fact sheet for the Invesco managed balance fund model, rather, I can press go and it pulls through their own white labeled fact sheet. As at most recent time, we've updated it. So we've got, you can see that there, January 2026, this month's version. And again, it's all of their own data, objectives, performance, etc., breakdowns, underlying funds in here, and then their quarterly manager commentaries as well, which I can access via the fact sheet page. Give you a bit more of a detailed breakdown about how those models are run, what the objectives are, some of the strategic decisions behind how they're running the model portfolio. So yes, a lot of data via hitting those fact sheet pages, in a very similar way to how you can do it with with an individual fund on analytics. You can also set up alerts. So again, when you've got model portfolio solutions added into your active list, you'll see the little bell icon here, and that means I can then go and create an alert for a model. So say this is one that I've already got as part of my CIP, and I want to be notified whether or not maybe the performance has increased, or the price effectively has risen by 10%, or it's fallen by 10%. I can create alerts in place there, so that I'm going to be notified that any models as part of my CIP, there's been any significant changes to them. And again, like it is for funds, I can then select or add alerts in by different metrics. So under performance, so if I wanted to then go and say, let me know if this model rises by 10% or falls by 10%, I did the inputs, press the plus icon, and it's going to put it through onto the right-hand side. Again, I might want to be notified whenever the annual charge for this model portfolio changes from 0.1. If the provider then reduces their charges, I might think, great, let me know, and I'll be able to then review that from there. Again, similar to the Crown ratings, any of the risk scores, you could put an alert in place so that it will be triggered whenever that happens. And again, you might decide that I don't want to have a, I want to provide, or want to see the new fact sheet whenever that's launched. Press add in there. And whenever you've created the alerts for all of these triggers, then essentially you'll be notified. So anytime that's done, you'll receive an email links to your email address on your analytics account. And again, that's going to be then sat on the system indefinitely. So every time a change is made, or every time charges or new fact sheets, etc., are launched, if I press save here, that'll be triggered and sent through to my account. So as I mentioned, under the instruments tab is where you can go and find individual models, looking at providers. We've also now been able to, so like everything else on the system, like every other universe within the system, we've been able to now build out like a number of different MPS sectors. So in exactly the same way, if I click the sectors tab here and select UK MPS as my universe, I can click on the drop down list next to that, and it's going to pull through all of the MPS sectors. And you can see we've got them listed here. So effectively going from 0% up to 100% growth assets. So that's looking at the equity and property content within each of the model portfolios. We've been able to build these sectors out, so you can also do research by particular sectors. So if I choose in here now to press add, that's going to pull all 8 of those sectors into my active list. So the 6 sectors based on the growth assets percentage, and then not yet classified and unclassified. And again, if I wanted to then go and throw those into something like a line chart, for example, on the right hand side, I can do so. Touching on some of the outputs on the right hand side within analytics, under charts, there's a feature called the performance line chart, which is probably the most commonly used individual feature on the whole system. There's over 5 million of them run last year. And again, we always say analytics is like a design tool. So whatever the outputs you want to generate are, you just need to tell the system what you want to see. And if I want to see how all 8 of these MPS sectors have performed over a 10-year period, I can select the line chart option on the right hand side, select 10 years and generate chart. And again, the system's just going to push the 2 sides together So kind of lo and behold, we've got a line chart now as of most recent prices, or so it's Monday in this instance here. A performance chart basically showing me how each of these sectors has done over that time period. And again, probably no surprise that the one with the highest percentage growth assets has done the best, and the one with 0 to 15% has done the worst. But just to show you kind of some of the use cases for some of that sector data. So as well as being able to look at the sectors as a whole, what you can now also do is start to kind of drill down into each of the individual sectors on the system to have a look at top performers, top volatility, etc. So if I remove a couple of these from my chart now, I say I want to run it on the 65 to 85% growth sector, and I hit the fact sheet page again. So again, this is exactly the same as if you've got a unit trust and OIC sector added into your active list. If you hit that little fact sheet page, that's going to run the sector fact sheet analysis. So in the instance of a model, what it tells me here is this is the breakdown of all of the models within my sector. So 65 to 85% growth sector determined by the FE fund info growth assets percentage. Here's the quick stat information. So that's going to tell me how many models, how many constituent portfolios make up this one sector. So in this instance here, we've got 317. 4 of those have portfolios with FE alpha rated managers. Here are the top performing portfolios for me. So by default in the system, it's going to then show me these figures over 1 year. If I decide that I want to actually change that again, I can do so. Over 5 years now, I know that within this sector, the Tatton Tracker Aggressive has been the best performing model within this grouping. And you've got bottom performing portfolios as well as volatile, or most volatile and least volatile over there. If I click on the performance tab, again, I can then see the performance of the sector as a whole over that time period, again, 5 years. And I can have a look at the members. So by selecting the members, that's then going to give me a detailed breakdown of every single model that is within that sector. And again, rated in alphabetical order initially. I can then scroll through this list. If I wanted to pull the model portfolios back onto my active list to look at them in a bit more detail, I can do by selecting that small green icon. And I can also click on the fact sheet page again to open up that same page that I had open for a couple of those other models. Earlier on. Other bits of informational data that you'll see within this screen is crown ratings. So again, if anyone familiar with FE, analytics, TrustNet, etc., exactly in the same way that we've done with funds that are actively managed, we've also now been able to build or add our own crown ratings onto model portfolios and solutions as well. So in the same way, they're based on the crown ratings, look at kind of 4 different metrics. So performance, consistency, volatility, and alpha against the peer group. And then the models are ranked. From there, you'll see, I think, a lot of passively managed model portfolios will probably show NA. So rankings aren't added for things. Again, it's the same with funds, passively managed ones. But you'll see that, again, all of the models in here that have sufficient history essentially will then have their own crown ratings. And again, the same way that they are with funds, the scores are effectively staggered. So you've got only 10% of them will have a 5-star rating, 15% will have a 4-star rating, and then 1, 2, and 3 stars will be split between within 25% of funds within each sector will have each of those. Other info you can see from here, I can generate the 6-month performance, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year cumulative performance, as well as 1 year and 3 year volatility. But said again, I think it's whole of market MPS research in here, so you can go and get the data for any one of these model portfolios and analyze them from there. So that kind of covers off the sectors and what you can do with those. Leading on to that, one of the other really powerful features, I think, within, or one of the other really powerful tools that you can then use with the MPS data as part of the universe is filtering. So again, in the same way that you can filter for an individual fund on the system by looking at specific criteria, now that the universe has been launched, you can do this exact same thing, but I can then search for model portfolios by their specific criteria. So to do that, all I need to do again is select the fund filters tab up here and then select new. That will open up a new tab for me. And this, again, like the rest of the home screen, works from left to right. So initially, you need to select the universe you want to have a look at, because I've already got MPS, UK MPS selected on the home screen. It's going to pull by default. And then on the left-hand side, I can see these are all the characteristics that I want to then filter my model down by. You see on the right hand side, these are the number of providers, or sort of these are the number of models that are within the universe. So I've got 1,542, and I just need to then start adding in kind of layers really of characteristics or criteria that I'm looking for whenever I'm going to pick a model portfolio for one of my clients or for my my CIP. So say initially I thought I'm going to have a look at, again, maybe the same sector that I'd had a look at earlier on. So I can just go down to the fact sheet characteristics, drop down here, select the sectors tab, find 65 to 85%, press the green icon to add it over. And again, you can see already there's 317 models, as we know from the previous list. And it's just the case then of going in and adding information there to kind of whittle the number of models down, so I can then do a bit more detailed analysis on a smaller group. So the next thing I want to filter by was all models that had a crown rating of 5 stars. You can go to ratings, select 5 crowns, press the green icon, add them over. Now there's only 29. A couple of other things I want to have a look at maybe is performance over a certain time period. I need to know that these models are in the top quartile over 1 year and over 5 years. I can select quartile ranking equals 1 over 5. Now we've got 10 results, and again I might think actually I want something that's going to have relatively low charges for a model, so I can click on the charges tab, select annual charges less than, I don't know, 0.2 maybe, add that in. Might not make any difference. Yeah, knocked one off there. But again, you can filter by literally any of the data entry fields really on here. So if you're looking to filter by the OCF underlying funds, I can do that. If I wanted to search by specific investment characteristics, so asset allocation, region, sector allocations, etc. I just need to add in, as I said, from the left-hand side, what I want to have a look at, and it's going to tell me the number of funds that meets my criteria. So over here on the right-hand side, I've now got 9 results. If I press show results, it's going to basically, the system will custom build me a table that lists all 9 of those funds, or 9 of those models, sorry. So I can see them there. The table is designed now so that I've got all of the filters that I've added in there, so it evidences that exactly what I've searched for is pulled through. So here I've got my sectors, 5-star crowns, top quartile in each of those time periods, and then a MPS charge of 0.2 or less. And again, in the same way, I can then select these options here to pull these models back onto the home screen to analyze them a little bit further. If you hit this landscape PDF icon as well, that will actually produce like a 1-pager PDF document with all of the PDFs, as you mentioned on analytics. They can be white labeled, so they'll pull through your firm or practice logo if you've got that added in your account. But again, it's just like a little 1-pager report that basically outlines that these are the models that have hit the criteria that I need to have a look at. And if anyone ever asks, if you're looking to show the FCA why you've selected a particular model range, this screen is kind of perfect for showing exactly that. So you've done your research and it's on there. So that summarizes really the MPS universe and some of the outputs and some of the research you can do from there. To highlight the difference between the universe and the directory, say for example, I've got, I've been doing some research on here, and I've decided that the LGT Vestia model portfolios are some of the ones I'm going to then go and select. If I go and pick out the balance model here and add it into my active list, you'll notice that I can't then go and generate any one of the outputs on the right-hand side, so any of the charts, any of the tables, any of the reports. The system won't allow you to do that. So what you'll need to then do is request access to these models via the MPS directory. And to make it a little bit quicker and easier for you as an advisor, instead of having to go to the MPS directory tab over here on the left-hand side, you can simply click on this little link here, request access to run further analysis via portfolios, and that's going to jump you straight into the MPS directory tool. So as mentioned at the start, the MPS directory is literally the list of all of the providers that we've got, so that once you've then determined and you've used the universe to do your whole of market analysis, you can then go into the directory to get further kind of more detailed information. So again, it's the case of going in here, finding the providers that you want to have a look at, and then requesting access via that screen. So say, for example, I wanted to use the Tatton model portfolios, click on the provider name, it'll pull through a little bit of a fact sheet page, a bit about who they are, a bit about the models, charges, etc. And then you'll have 2 buttons in the bottom right hand corner. So you've got request info, so you might even go and submit a question through there, for example, like tell me a bit about your passive or your ESG models, or this option here, activate me. And the activate me one is the one you'll use if you want to then get the models fully built and plumbed into your account, so you can then start generating some of the kind of the more detailed analysis through analytics. So type in your details here, tick that box, press submit. That pings a request through to the provider at their end. They all have access to analytics. So when you've requested the models in your account, in theory, they should be able to approve you pretty much straight away. So as soon as you've done that, the models will pull through, and then you'll be able to start doing some more of the, as I said, detailed analysis, and start to then kind of put the models, or chuck the models into some of the other outputs on the right hand side. So when you've been approved for a model portfolio range, you'll find them under your portfolios drop down list. So if I click on the portfolios tab now, go to my drop down list, I can see maybe I've requested access to LGT previously. If I add that same balanced model portfolio into my active list now, remove this one, and then go to run a line chart, you'll see that it then generates. I think so the kind of subtle differences are there, that you've now got the models plumbed into your account. So all of the model data is in there. You can go and access a breakdown of the full model portfolio holdings information. You'll see in a second here on the line charts that we also then have a record of all of the historical changes that a model has made. So I think the MPS data that we've got in analytics really is unparalleled. So all of those historical changes since the model launched in 2009 have been plumbed into the system here. And then when I go and run something like a line chart, that 75.27% figure that I'm showing a client or showing somebody for when I'm recommending a switch is a true reflection of exactly how this model's done over time. It doesn't just take the current weightings and work backwards. It's actually evidenced by all of these small squares on this line chart. So if when you might notice when I run the sector line chart a moment ago that it wouldn't have had those, or if I was to put a fund on a line chart, it wouldn't have had those either. But all of those individual squares on this line chart show me these are when this model provider's made a change. So whether it's been rebalanced, funds have been switched, weightings have been amended, that data is all stored on the system. And again, is as of most recent prices. So I've got a 10-year line chart here showing me how this model was done over that period up to yesterday. It's not like it's last month end or quarter end, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. When you've had access to the models provided via the directory, you've got the full model breakdown, and then you can start, as I said, kind of adding it into a lot of the other functions within analytics. So again, I can press PDF and start generating reports from here. There's a feature in system called chart options, which would allow me to say, well, what would have happened had no changes been made since a certain date, to actually evidence the fact that the active management on this model portfolio is having a positive impact. And you can then show what the active management is doing in terms of the growth rates. So other outputs that are really popular on the system here. So when you've got the models enabled, see line chart, as I said, is probably the most commonly used individual feature on the whole system. Second most commonly used chart type is probably the scatter charts, and these ones are really nice. So I know a lot of advisors will use a scatter chart basically to show where a client's existing fund or portfolio might then sit amongst a range of models. So say, for example, again, if I'm using the LGT example here, I've got all the LGT models built into my account. I can use this feature on the home screen here called build and save list. So if I click on here, open up my LGT MPS range, that will pull through my list of models that I'm going to be using and analysing on a regular basis. It pulls them all through, and say I've got an existing client called Keith Baker, and I've built his current portfolio on analytics, and I want to show him where he currently sits along the range of LGT MPS solutions. The scatter charts are great for doing that. So I can select my models, add them all into my list here, go to my charts output on the right hand side, select scatter chart, and again the period I want to have a look over, and generate. And hopefully what we should get here is the efficient frontier curve showing from the kind of defensive model in the bottom left hand corner up to the more adventurous one in the top right, where the client currently sits along that range. Those things are always typical, isn't it, on a calls when it's sized a little bit slower. There we go. Cool. So as I said, the scatter charts are really powerful. So showing performance on the left hand side, higher equals better. On the bottom axis, you've got volatility. So annualized volatility over that 5-year period. Again, towards the right is increased volatility or increased risk. So I can show quite nicely on this chart here that the defensive model portfolio that we're looking at is E, going all the way up to adventurous, which is A. Keith Baker's current portfolio that I've built on here. Again, this is the same thing. If you build a client's existing portfolio on the system, I can pull that through. If you're using any one of the back office systems or CRMs that integrate into analytics, you can export them or import them rather from those systems. And again, there's a wide range of platforms that will allow you to import portfolio data into analytics. So you can use it in things like these charts, import the client's current portfolio on in there, and I can then start showing him where he's, or where, you know, where they're sitting along that range of investments. So in this particular instance, I can show that Keith Baker, if I'm looking vertically, in terms of volatility or risk, he's risk aligned pretty much to the LGT growth portfolio. But again, when I look horizontally here, his performance actually has been way off any of them. So even the defensive one. So it's quite a nice way of actually showing the client, here's where you currently sit along that range of investments. I might actually then, in this instance here, recommend you move into the balance model, which is C on here, and you might then be able to reduce your risk and hopefully then increase the performance over that time. And again, like all of the other charts and reports, etc., press PDF and you can then extract that data from the system. So those are a couple of the really popular report chart types on analytics that you can then plug or plumb the model portfolios into. Moving on to a couple of the report outputs on the system. So one of them is the scan report. So if I click on this little fact sheet page here, that will generate a report for me called a medium scan. There's 3 different types of scans you can run on a portfolio analytics. So a short one is like the headline info. The medium one is this one here with 2 pages, and the 5-page one called the long scan, which is a little bit more detailed. But this is really good today and will give you a full breakdown of that model. So for example, I've, as I said, requested access to these models, having used the directory to kind of drill down to what I want to have a look at. If I then quickly want to see what the composition is and what this portfolio is built of, click on that fact sheet page. That gives you the full breakdown. Here I can see the holdings information. Again, the crown ratings, etc., for those underlying funds. We've got the ESG analysis, ratios information, asset sector and region splits. So again, very easy for me to analyze exactly where those model portfolios are invested. And then again, I've configured this page in analytics, so it's going to then show me the back tested performance of each of these portfolios against their own benchmarks over those time periods. And one thing that's important to remember within analytics as well, we always say it's like a design tool. So whatever the outputs you're looking to generate are, you'll be able to do that. You just need to tell the system what you want to see. So exactly the same way, all of these reports, all of the scans, portfolio comparison reports are configurable. So I've changed mine to then show these exact charts here. But if you click on the drop down list, you can amend it and you can basically pull through the data sets or data fields that you need to see as an advisor. Another very popular report type as well, once you've had access to the model portfolios, is called the portfolio comparison report. So if I minimize that screen again and go to the reports tab on the right hand side, click on the drop down list and select portfolio comparison. This one as well is really powerful. A lot of advisors we see using this when you're looking to recommend a switch, if you've got like a new business case on. And again, in the same way, I can say, well, I've got a client's existing portfolio called Keith Baker. I want to show him where that sits, or how that compares to my model portfolio. You can actually ignore the active list for this, but I can just go over here on the right hand side, select the 2 portfolios I want to compare, and then press generate report. And again, this will then present the 2 of them side by side next to each other, so it makes it really easy to compare those 2 model solutions. A lot of the reports again on analytics you'll have seen are designed to save time, so I haven't got to then run a line chart, a scatter chart, and an individual portfolio report for each of these models. So rather than having to do 6 individual report types, the portfolio comparison is designed to do exactly that in one go. And again, it presents the portfolio so they're really easy to analyze. So like on the left hand side here, I can see here's Keith Baker's current portfolio, here are the holdings. On the right hand side here, I've got my model portfolio. Again, exactly the same information on the previous screen: performance, volatility on the line chart, performance against the benchmarks, asset, region, and sector allocations. And as I said, yeah, part of those differences, once you've had access, or once you've been approved access for the models in the directory, you can then also start pushing the model data into other parts of the system. So it's exactly this asset allocation data that I can now push into cash calc. So if I'm a cash calc user and I'm building a cash flow model, rather than just adding a generic linear growth rate, say my client is a balanced investor, we've just done a risk profile with them. Balanced investor, we used to get questions all the time from advisors, should I just stick a 5% growth rate on that particular pot? We've released a new integration between analytics and cash calc, which means you don't need to do that anymore. So I can take the asset allocation breakdown of this exact model, push it into cash calc, and it will forecast a linear or a variable growth rate for me to then use within my cash flow scenario. So I can now build bespoke cash flows based on the client's actual real-time portfolio and asset allocation information. So again, how do I do that? If I go into my portfolios drop down when I've been approved for a model, press edit, that will open up the portfolio builder screen again here, which is also where you can go and see all of the historical changes. You can see the model breakdowns in here. As I said, you can now push the information from analytics into cash calc. So if I press the data tab at the top here, I can export to cash calc. You can also export models to advisor assets. So if you're doing a cost and charges analysis, you can do the same thing. More and more providers have been added onto the advisor asset tool, but not quite as big a coverage as we've got on analytics. But as I said, if my client's ISA is invested in this LGT portfolio, if I press export to cash calc, export as linear growth template and create template, all of our systems as part of the Nexus solution are integrated. So the integrated advisor tech stack will allow me to push my portfolio data from analytics into cash calc, into the investment proposition tab. So I can see that based on this portfolio's asset allocation breakdown, we're forecasting a 7.14% linear growth rate. And if I press view and then edit, you can see here's the asset mapping. Essentially, the model works by taking the current asset allocation breakdown, as per the medium scan and the data on analytics, mapping it into the unit trust and OIC sectors where we've got the 35 years history of the performance there. So that covers like a number of different bull run periods, a few different market crashes, to then build or produce a linear growth rate off the back of it. So where you can really then, once you've had the data and the models approved in analytics, you can really start leveraging it across the wider advisor tech stack. So now when I'm building a cash flow model scenario, if my client's ISA is in the LGT balanced portfolio, I can go and select that. So press edit, go to template, scroll down under portfolios to find the relevant portfolio that the client's in that I pushed over from. Again, you can see I've done this with a load of different MPS solutions from my account. Select the relevant one I want to use. And when I now build my cash flow model, my ISA portfolio for my client is going to track a linear growth rate that matches their risk profile and their asset allocation breakdown rather than just being a generic one. And it's now bespoke. But yeah, as I said, once you've used the universe to gain access to the models via the directory, you can then really start to leverage the data in other ways. Again, using our new feature called Nexus AI. If I was on a call with a client, my note taker tool would join it, and I can go and generate some of those same medium scan documents straight into the Nexus AI feature. As I said, just to give you a couple of examples from our side of where we typically see, where we probably most commonly see a lot of value being added from gaining access via the directory. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that summarizes. That's probably pretty much what I was going to go over. Yeah, from my end really today. So hopefully that summarizes, as I said, a lot of the benefits on the universe. So kind of summarizing what you can do in the universe, and then why you would then go in and request access to the models via the directory. So if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ping them away in the chat. Got a couple in there. So yeah, just go through some of the questions there. How many MPSs do you have on the platform? So yeah, in terms of the number of MPS providers on the platform, I think on the directory now there are 90. Not every single provider on the platform is on the directory is on the universe, but yeah, there's about 90 providers now that you can access the data for via the directory. And I think just under that, probably about 80 odd that have uploaded their information into the universe. A couple of questions on the growth assets. So it's based on the number of the equity and property content within each model or portfolio. On those, I think there's a little answer sheet I can send around to you. So anyone who's asked questions on those, I'll come around at the end. Yes. Yeah, so there's a question in here about requested access. So hopefully would have gone through. Yeah, hopefully would have covered that in the call. So as I said, yeah, that you can still do both. So historically via the directory. A lot of advisors would have requested access to those models that are covered in the kind of the second half of the call there. But as I said, you'll be able to get the headline information for whole of market, every single model provider that has their information in the directory. Any other questions on there? I think most of them we've been able to go through. In terms of how frequently the data is updated, Ben, I mean, we get in terms of performance and kind of volatility information, that's daily. So yeah, daily pricing information on here. That's again, I think, an advantage of using the MPS tools in analytics. I know there are other tools out there that do MPS research, and you might get month end or even quarter end information, 1, 3 year, 5 years. So in terms of performance and volatility, it's as of most recent changes, exactly the same actually. When you've got like a when you've got a model provided, enabled in your directory, again, anytime a model provider makes a change, that's updated on analytics. So they'll go in there and submit anytime changes are made. So even if it's just a rebalance, said weightings amended, etc., as and when that's done, the system will be reflected to or updated to reflect that. And again, that ensures that all of the performance data is accurate as of most recent prices. Things like asset allocation information, some of that breakdown stuff, I think we typically get that from fund managers once a month, so typically the end of each month. So that will be in maybe a month or two staggered, I suppose. But again, whenever you're looking on the fact sheet pages, it will tell you here's the asset allocation breakdown as at a certain date. But again, it's within the last couple of months, but typically I think that's kind of month end info that will be updated with. Yes. So again, so Rick's question there, is it easy to export the asset allocation date allocation of a model from FE to cash calc? So I didn't cover that there, but it's exactly the same thing. So whenever you're exporting a asset allocation breakdown from analytics into cash calc, do it via the portfolio builder. And then there's a variable growth or asset allocation template that you can generate, and then you can link it into the Monte Carlo tool within cash calc. So as well as being able to model it or forecast that in your standard cash flow model scenario, you can also run it in the Monte Carlo stochastic modeling tool. So you can say, based on this asset allocation breakdown, again, of the client's real-time portfolio info, how was that? How will I, when will I run out of money based on the current value of my pot? Again, it's exactly the same thing. So that would also work for you. How long after requesting access will it become available? Good question again. Normally we'd say, I don't know, within 24 hours, perhaps. I know some providers are a bit quicker than other ones. But yeah, in theory, as soon as you've requested access, that will pull through onto the provider's end, so via the directory. As soon as you've requested access, it will say pending activation in the bottom right hand corner. We'd normally say give them 24 hours kind of leeway, and then if you've not heard anything back from there, give the provider a chase. So if it's a model provider that you're already using, feel free to reach out to them. If you've got like an account manager or a BDM, give them a shout. Unfortunately, we get a few queries from our end about expediting those. It's not something that we can speed up, unfortunately, because if we could, we would. But when the requests come through, they go straight over to the provider to do. But instead, give them 24 hours typically, and then if you don't have access from there, give them a chaser. Other questions that sometimes pop up as well is like, say you're using a model provider who aren't available in the directory. Please give them a shout and get them to reach out to us, because the more providers we've got on the system, the better. I suppose most of the main and larger players in that space are in there. But if you are using any other providers that aren't yet on the directory, please feel free to give them a prompt, get them to reach out to us, and we'll speak to them about getting the models uploaded. Has the session been recorded? I believe so. So I think we'll be able to send around a recording afterwards. Should say as well, the YouTube channel is a really good place on the system. I've not got my screen shared anymore, so bear with me. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the FE Analytics YouTube channel, but there's a video here that goes over the directory, the universe, etc. So if you jump over to the Analytics YouTube channel, that's really good. Really good place to pick up a lot of tips and tricks and stuff on the system, and all the most recent updates will be on here at the top. But there's a video. So that video there, the MPS universe, will go over pretty much what I've covered in the kind of early start of this call, early part of the call. But yeah, I think that's all the questions. If anyone's got any other questions that haven't been, we'll have a look at the question list in a minute, and then if there's any that haven't been answered, we'll be able to follow up for you. So yeah, thanks for attending the call. Sorry. Yeah, if you're an existing user of analytics and you've got any questions on anything, reach out to your account manager. If you're not an existing user and you want to have a look, yeah, feel free to give us a shout. So if you want to do like a demo, one-to-one call and a trial, yeah, reach out to us, and one of the team on the new business side will be able to reach out and get you set up on that. Other sessions, so the Demo Day Wednesday series, this is just one of them. If you scan that code, we've got a load of other sessions coming in the future on different tools. And then if you want to connect with me and LinkedIn, we try and share a lot of the information and updates, etc. on there. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and cheers for joining again. Said any questions in addition to anything gone over there, give us a shout, and enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers, bye.